Have you ever asked yourself this question? What is the use of being rich if you cannot trust the one you love? This is the question that lived inside the heart of Richard Cole. Richard was a man everyone in the city admired. He was young, handsome, and richer than anyone could imagine. He owned tall glass buildings, fast shiny cars, and even a private island where the water was so blue that it looked like heaven had fallen into the sea. People called him the Golden King of Tech because he made billions from computers and smart machines. But there was one thing Richard did not have. He did not have peace in his heart. Before we dive into this story, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. You don't want to miss what happens next. Every time he looked at his wife, Elena, he felt both love and fear. Elena was beautiful, like a queen in a fairy tale. Her smile could melt ice. Her voice was soft, like music. She held Richard's hand in public, kissed his cheek at parties, and always said, "I love you." But when Richard was alone in his huge bedroom at night, a thought burned in his chest. Does she love me, or does she love my money? Richard had grown up with a father who warned him many times. Son, when you are rich, love wears a mask. You may think she loves you, but behind the mask could be greed. These words haunted him, like a ghost that never left his side. One night, Richard sat alone in his study. The golden lamps glowed, and the city lights twinkled outside his window. But Richard's eyes were dark with worry. He whispered to himself, "How can I know the truth? How can I know if Elena's love is real?" And then, like lightning, an idea struck his mind. A crazy, dangerous idea. He would pretend to be blind. Yes, he would make Elena believe that he could no longer see. He would live as a blind man, weak and helpless, to watch what she would do. Would she stay and care for him? Or would she betray him and run away? It was a game of the heart, a test of love. And Richard was ready to play it. He called his most loyal bodyguard, Mark, a tall man who had been by his side for years. Richard told him the plan. Mark's face turned pale. "Sir, this is madness. Why would you torture yourself like this?" Richard's voice was calm but cold. "Because I would rather know the ugly truth than live with a sweet lie." Mark nodded, even though his heart felt heavy. He agreed to help his master keep the secret. The next morning, Richard called his private doctor. With money and orders, the doctor spread the news that Richard had suffered an accident that damaged his eyes. The world soon believed the story, "The billionaire is blind." When Elena heard it, she screamed and rushed to Richard's side. Her arms wrapped around him, and tears ran down her face. "Oh, my love, how will you live? How will you see me again? How will you see the sun?" Richard sat there, pretending to be broken, his eyes staring into nothing. Inside, his heart was stone. He was watching, not seeing, listening, not speaking. The days turned into weeks. Elena guided him through the house, helped him eat, even read books aloud. At night, she whispered, "I will never leave you." But deep inside, Richard wondered, are these words true, or is she acting? Will time reveal her heart? So he waited. He listened. He watched in secret, with ears sharper than ever, like a hunter waiting for prey. And in the silence of his mansion, Richard Cole prepared for the biggest test of his life. The story of love and betrayal had only just begun. Richard Cole was now living in darkness. At least, that was what everyone believed. The newspapers wrote about him, the billionaire who lost his sight. On TV, people cried and said, "How sad. A man with everything now lives in shadows." But Richard's blindness was only an act. Behind those still, empty eyes was a mind sharper than a blade. He could see perfectly well, but he pretended not to. He wanted to know the truth about Elena, his wife. Elena at first looked like an angel. She stayed close to him every morning. She touched his hand gently, saying, "Careful, my love, the chair is in front of you." She fed him soup, spoon by spoon. She opened books and read them in her sweet voice, as if nothing in the world mattered except him. Richard listened. He smiled softly, but deep inside, he was not fooled. This is the beginning, he thought. Everyone can act kind in the first days. But time will show me who she really is. Days passed. Weeks passed. At first, Elena was patient. She dressed him, combed his hair, guided him down the long marble stairs of their mansion. She whispered, "Don't worry, I am here." But soon, little cracks began to show. One morning, when she thought Richard was asleep, Elena sighed loudly. "Oh, God! How long will I live like this? A nurse, not a wife. A servant, not a queen." Richard's heart jumped. He wanted to open his eyes and scream, "So this is who you are." But he stayed still, breathing slowly, pretending to dream. Another evening, when she gave him food, her hand trembled. The spoon touched his cheek by mistake. "Sorry," she snapped, angry. "If only you could eat by yourself like before." Richard nodded calmly, hiding the storm inside his chest. He was watching, always watching. He also noticed Elena had started to go out more often. At first, she said, "I'm going to the spa to relax." Later, she said, "I'm visiting my cousin." Then, "I'm meeting friends." But she stayed out late, sometimes past midnight. And when she returned, she smelled of strong perfume, not her own. Richard asked softly one night, "Did you enjoy your evening?" Elena kissed his forehead and answered too quickly, "Yes, very much. Don't worry about me." Her smile was sweet, but her voice was nervous. Richard's ears were open like the ears of a wolf in the forest. He caught every sound, footsteps on the floor, whispers on the phone, the clink of a glass at midnight. Then came the night that broke his heart even more. Richard sat in his room, pretending to be lost in the dark. Elena thought he was asleep, but his ears heard her soft steps. She was talking on the phone, her voice low and secretive. "Yes, darling," she whispered. "He's blind now, completely helpless. He depends on me like a child. Soon, I will get everything. His money, his power, his empire. Just be patient. I will drain it all, and then we will run away together." Richard's chest froze. His breath almost stopped. His blood boiled like fire under his skin. So it was true. The love he believed in was only a mask. Behind the mask was greed. Behind the smile was betrayal. But still, he said nothing. He stayed in his chair, eyes closed, as if the world was darkness. When Elena walked past him, Richard whispered softly, "Good night, my love." Elena jumped, startled, and forced a laugh. "Good night, darling. Sleep well." But Richard's heart was no longer soft. Inside, he was building a storm. From that night, he watched her even more carefully. He learned her patterns. When she left, who she called, when she lied. He was a hunter in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment. Because Richard Cole was not just a blind man. He was a billionaire. And he had a plan. The game of love and betrayal was moving into its darkest stage. The mansion was quiet. Too quiet. It was late at night, and Richard Cole sat in his chair with his eyes closed. To Elena, he looked like a helpless blind man who had fallen asleep. But Richard was wide awake. His ears were sharp, his mind was sharp, his heart was breaking. He had already heard enough lies to know the truth. But tonight, he would hear more. Tonight, Elena would reveal her deepest betrayal. Richard's ears caught the soft creak of the door. Elena was moving silently down the hall. He listened. Her steps were light, like a cat sneaking in the dark. Then came the sound of a second pair of footsteps. A man's voice whispered, low and smooth. "Finally, Elena. I thought your husband would never sleep." Richard's blood froze. He kept his face calm, his eyes closed. Elena giggled, soft and cruel. Don't worry. He's blind. He sees nothing. He knows nothing. He is a pathetic fool. The words cut Richard's heart like knives. He wanted to jump up, shout, and tear the mask off her face. But he didn't move. He stayed still, a statue of silence. The man whispered again, his voice full of desire. So, when will you take his fortune? Elena answered without fear. Soon. He is already weak. I will make him sign the papers. Once I have everything, we will disappear together. And Richard Cole will be nothing but a blind, lonely man with empty hands. Richard's chest burned. The woman he had loved, the woman he had trusted, was planning to destroy him. But he stayed calm. His mind, like a chess player, moved pieces into place. Not yet, he thought. Not tonight. Let her dig her own grave. Let her show me everything. The man laughed softly. Richard heard them kiss. He closed his fists tightly, nails digging into his palms. His heart screamed in pain, but his face stayed quiet, like a blind man lost in dreams. When they left the room, Richard opened his eyes. His vision was clear, sharp, strong. He stared at the ceiling and whispered to himself. So this is love. A lie wrapped in silk. A poison hidden in a kiss. From that night forward, Richard began to collect proof. He asked his loyal guard, Mark, to follow Elena in secret. Mark took pictures, recorded voices, gathered every detail. Each day he returned with more evidence of Elena's betrayal. She was meeting the man at hotels. She was taking money from Richard's accounts without telling him. She was laughing, drinking, living a double life. And every evening, she came home, kissed Richard on the cheek, and said, "How was your day, my love?" Richard would smile softly and answer, "Quiet, as always." But inside, a storm was rising. One evening, Elena sat beside him. She held his hand and said sweetly, "Richard, I think we should move your fortune into my name. It will be safer. You can trust me." Richard almost laughed out loud, but he kept his face calm. "Yes, my love," he whispered. "I trust you completely." Elena's eyes sparkled with greed. She kissed him, but Richard felt no warmth, only poison. When she left the room, Richard finally let the mask drop. His eyes were cold, his jaw hard. She thinks I am her fool. She thinks I am blind. But soon, she will see who I truly am. That night, Richard wrote in his secret journal, "Tomorrow begins my revenge. The mask will fall, and Elena will pay for every lie, every kiss, every plan to destroy me." The mansion was still. The city outside glittered with lights. But inside Richard's heart, there was only darkness, darker than blindness, darker than night. He had loved Elena, but love had died. Now, only vengeance lived. The sun rose over the city, painting the glass towers gold. But inside Richard Cole's mansion, the air was heavy. The game of love was finished. Now it was the game of revenge. Richard sat quietly in his study. His hands rested on the desk, but his mind was busy, drawing plans, building traps. He had been patient for weeks, maybe months. He had listened to Elena's lies, heard her lover's voice, felt the knife of betrayal cut his heart again and again. But now, it was his turn. He called his guard, Mark. The loyal man entered, holding a folder thick with papers and photographs. Mark's face was grim. "Sir, I have followed her. Everything you feared is true. She is stealing, meeting the other man, preparing to take your fortune." Richard opened the folder. Inside were pictures of Elena with her lover, laughing in hotels, drinking champagne, holding hands. There were bank records of money missing. There were recordings of Elena's voice, whispering her plan to drain Richard's empire. Richard closed the folder slowly. His eyes were cold, like winter ice. "Good," he said softly. The truth is now complete. Now, she will face the storm. The next days, Richard played his role even better. He acted weaker than ever. He let Elena guide him, feed him, dress him. He pretended to struggle with simple things, to stumble, to sigh like a helpless man. Elena smiled sweetly, but inside, she was already celebrating. She thought victory was near. One evening, she sat beside him and whispered, "Richard, my love, I think it is time. We should move all your wealth into my name. It will protect us. Don't you trust me?" Richard turned his face toward her, eyes still blank, voice gentle. "Yes, my dear. I trust you with everything I have." Elena's eyes sparkled. Her heart raced with greed. She kissed him on the lips and whispered, "You will never regret this." But Richard, in his mind, whispered back, "Oh, you will be the one who regrets." The papers were prepared. Elena was excited. She told her lover in secret, "It is done. Soon I will own it all. Soon we will be free." The day of signing came. A lawyer was invited to the mansion. Elena dressed like a queen, wearing diamonds that glittered like stars. Richard sat in his chair, looking weak and lost, his blind man's cane beside him. The lawyer placed the papers on the table. Elena held her breath. This was the moment she had dreamed of. "Richard," she said softly, pretending to be loving, "here are the documents. Once you sign, everything will be safe with me. Our future will be secure." Richard nodded slowly. He picked up the pen. His hand shook, as if he could not see. Elena smiled wider, her eyes shining with hunger. But then, Richard stopped. He placed the pen down. He stood up, and slowly, carefully, he reached for the cane. Then, he let the cane fall. The sound echoed in the room. Elena's smile froze. Richard lifted his head. His eyes, once dull, now burned like fire. He looked straight at Elena, clear and sharp. The lawyer gasped. Mark stepped forward. Elena's face turned white. Richard's voice was like thunder. "You wanted a blind man. But here I am, with eyes wide open. I saw everything. I heard everything. Every lie, every kiss, every plan to steal my soul." Elena trembled. "Ah, Richard, I don't understand. Don't lie to me." Richard roared. "I know about him. I know about the money. I know how you called me a fool in the dark. Did you think I would never find out? Did you think my love made me blind?" Tears ran down Elena's face. She fell to her knees. "Please, Richard, forgive me. I was confused. I was weak. But Richard's face was stone. He looked down at her, cold and unforgiving. "You failed the only test that mattered. Love. You had everything, Elena. My heart, my trust, my soul. But you chose greed. And now, you will have nothing." He turned to the lawyer. "Tear those papers apart." The lawyer ripped the documents in half. The sound was final, like the closing of a coffin. Elena screamed. She tried to grab Richard's leg, but Mark stepped between them. Her diamonds sparkled, but they meant nothing now. Richard's voice was quiet, but sharper than a knife. "Get out of my house. Out of my life. You are dead to me." Elena cried, begged, pleaded, but the guards dragged her away. Her shoes clicked against the marble floor as she disappeared from the mansion forever. Richard stood alone in the great hall. His eyes were clear, but inside, his heart was heavy. He had won the game, but the victory felt empty. For what is a man with billions, if love is nothing but a mask? The mansion was quiet again. But this time, it was not the silence of lies. It was the silence of emptiness. Elena was gone. Her perfume no longer filled the halls. Her laughter, false and cruel, no longer echoed through the rooms. The house felt colder, bigger, emptier. Richard Cole stood by the tall glass window, looking at the city below. His eyes, once hidden behind the mask of blindness, were sharp and alive. He had revealed the truth. He had won the test. He had thrown Elena out. But inside, his heart was not celebrating. It was heavy. He whispered to himself, "So this is victory. So this is truth." The truth hurt more than the lie. For many nights, Richard could not sleep. He walked through the mansion alone, past golden statues and diamond chandeliers, past silk carpets and crystal glasses. He had everything money could buy, but he felt poorer than ever. He sat at his piano one night, pressing the keys softly. Music filled the air, gentle and sad. He closed his eyes and asked himself, "What is love? What is trust? What is the point of billions if your heart is empty?" The next morning, he called Mark, his loyal guard. "Take all her pictures down," Richard said. "Every dress, every jewel she wore, remove them. I do not want ghosts in my house." Mark obeyed. Soon the mansion was stripped of Elena's presence. It looked the same, but felt different. Still, the emptiness remained. Richard's story spread across the city. Newspapers wrote about it. Billionaire outsmarts gold-digging wife. People whispered in cafes, "Did you hear? He pretended to be blind, just to test her loyalty. Genius." Some admired him. Some called him cruel. But Richard felt nothing. Praise and insults meant little to a man whose heart was scarred. One afternoon, Richard visited his father's grave. He stood before the stone, the wind soft on his face. "You were right, father," he said. "Love wears a mask. I tore it away, and what I found beneath was ugly." He placed flowers on the grave, white roses, pure and silent. Then he walked away, his steps slow, heavy. In the weeks that followed, Richard made a decision. He gathered his lawyers, his bankers, his advisors. "I will donate half of my fortune," he announced. "Build hospitals, schools, homes for orphans. Let my money touch lives, not just walls of glass." The room was shocked. Billions were being given away. But Richard's face was calm. "What is the use of wealth," he said, "if it cannot bring light to someone's darkness?" Soon, hospitals carried his name. Children learned in schools built from his fortune. Families slept under roofs he provided. Richard walked among them quietly, no longer just a billionaire, but a giver, a builder of hope. Yet even then, he remained alone. Sometimes, at night, he walked by the sea. The waves whispered, the moon shone silver. He would stand there, hands in his pockets, listening to the water. One evening, he whispered to himself, "Love is the real blindness. I could see the world, but not her heart. I was blind in the truest way." He closed his eyes. For a moment, he imagined a different life. A life where Elena had loved him truly, where she had stayed beside him not for gold, but for love. A life where he was not just a man of money, but a man of trust. But when he opened his eyes, the waves were still waves, and the night was still night. Richard Cole walked back slowly, the sand soft beneath his feet. He was no longer blind. He was no longer fooled. He was a man who had faced betrayal and survived. The world saw him as powerful, brilliant, victorious. But deep in his heart, he knew the truth. Money could build empires. Money could buy palaces. Money could even reveal lies. But money could never buy true love. And as he walked alone under the endless sky, Richard whispered the final words of his story. True love does not need a test. It proves itself. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment your thought and share this video.